Hey artists, in this video we're going to talk about our Google Drawing Digital Design Repeat Pattern Art Project. We're going to use a found image from Google as our reference for our repeat pattern template. So go on Google, find an image, click and drag and drop the image into your Google Drawing. Once you have the image in Google Drawing, that's your reference, you're going to click on Crop Image, and then you're going to click on Format Options. When you click on Crop Image, you're going to notice that the image has a black border. Then you're going to click on Size and Rotation, and you're going to make a square shape and move your image around and find an interesting part of the design that you'd like to trace. You can use a 1-inch square, a 2-inch square, or a 1.5-inch square, but you need to select a square shape of your image to crop your image. So drag the image around your square and then click away to make a square of your image. To resize it, press Shift, click, and drag on one of the bottom corners. You can use the zoom tool to make the canvas fit your screen better. Once you have your cropped square image, you're going to use the polyline or the curve tool to trace parts of your picture to create your repeating unit of your design. So for my design, I chose a butterfly wing. I'm going to use the curve tool to click and drag, click, move the mouse, click and move the mouse to trace elements of my design. By clicking, moving the mouse, and clicking all the way back to the beginning creates a nice shape that I'm able to fill in. The default color when the shapes are created is blue. So when you are looking at your design, as you are filling in the shape and closing off your shape, if you double click, the line will be closed, but it won't have an outline. So use that in your design also, especially for pieces around the corner and the edge. Use that curve tool to trace elements of your design that are interesting to you. You do not have to trace the entire image, but choose the shapes that are interesting to you. So for this butterfly wing, I'm focusing on tracing the yellow shapes. If you lose control while you're using the curve tool, just click on the select tool and go back to the curve tool so that you can continue tracing the shapes in your design. We're using this image as a reference, so our tracing doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be close. So as I am closing off these shapes, you might notice that the shapes that are around the edge, if you do not want to have an outline on the border, you can just double click to close off the shape and it will have a edge, but it won't have an outline. Once you have some of the shapes, you can get a little bit more detailed if you'd like. You do not have to make this harder than it needs to be. We just need some shapes that we can add color to later for our design. Our design is going to be a square that we duplicate, flip, and rotate. So these shapes don't need to be too perfect. You can use a combination of the curve tool and the polyline tool. So when I'm creating these shapes that are for the green, this corner is green, I'm using the polyline tool, which makes a geometric shape. And then I went back to the curve tool and I traced this other green shape that is in the corner. Then I played a little bit with the arrange back, send to back, so that I could layer that shape underneath the parts of the wing that I had already traced. Once you have your design, I also put a square shape behind it, so that way I had my perfect square shape for the repeat unit. If you need to zoom in and double click and resize any of your lines, now is the time to do that before we start duplicating. I moved my image outside of the canvas and then I made my shape all grouped together by selecting all and clicking arrange group. Then I went to the format options. I wanted to select everything and do edit duplicate. So it's like copy and paste at the same time. I duplicated it. Then I went to format options and flipped it horizontally. Then I duplicated that entire thing, moved it down, and flipped it vertically with the format options. So now that I have my repeating design, I can resize the canvas and make it a little bit smaller. And you could see now I can start clicking and editing my design. I went and I checked my square is a little bit off, but it's still very close by checking the size in format options. Now you can click and drag and ungroup your shapes, so that way you can individually select shapes and add color to them. So now you can press shift and click multiple shapes if you'd like to color them. You can also turn the borders to a different color. If you make them transparent, it's going to look like your whole design is gone, but just select everything and start adding color. The colors do not have to match your reference image. You can use colors that are unrealistic and unusual. So remember, you can press shift and click multiple shapes to color them all at the same time if that's something that you would like to do, or color them individually. This is where you're going to start playing with color schemes. You could do a realistic, unrealistic, warm colors, cool colors, contrasting colors. So right now I'm just playing a little bit with the colors. These square shapes, I decided that I wanted to remove them, and then I made a little bit of mistakes and played around with it again. So that way I was trying to figure out how to get rid of that plus in the center, but it's just the edges of those borders. I added a background by alternate clicking or right clicking and made the background orange. And then I selected all of the shapes. I found it easier to just keep all of the shapes for this first coloring very cohesive. So by selecting all, I clicked fill color and I did a solid color. Then I changed it to a gradient. Then I started to expand my design by copying and pasting my design and then lining up the edges. So now I've repeated my design 4 times, and now it looks a little bit different. There's like this X motif in between the top and the bottom. I sign my name with insert word art and I drag it down to the bottom. After I sign my name, I can use file, download PNG to save my artwork to my computer. I can't wait to see what you create for this project.